Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Froe Show. My name is Froe, and I'm joined as always by my beautiful co-host, John Murray.
But was it necessary?
It worked. Welcome to an episode. I've no idea what episode this is.
67.
67. 67?
I think so.
Okay. 67. What's up?
Not much.
All right.
Yeah.
See you next. No. Okay. I want to hear all about this concert gig.
Oh, okay. I mean, it went a lot better than I thought it would. Not gonna lie. I got there like an hour early because I figured I need some time to like prepare and all this sort of stuff. I just kind of threw my bag out the back and then stood around for like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So note to self, I don't need to be an hour early for a concert gig next time. But I ended up using the two cameras, like you said. I had my 24 to 105 on one, and then the 18 to 35 on the other. I walked in, and like 20 minutes before the show, I grabbed my cameras to start testing with the lighting. Put the 24 to 105 up to my eye and was like immediately walked out the back and changed it over to the 50 mil.
Yeah.
It was, yes, way too dark for that. But it still went really well because, the 50 mil, I was able to still get some nice compressed backgrounds and whatever. And the 18 to 35, I could stand right up against the stage. The space was also bigger than I remember. Yeah. Which is weird. Because I was talking to some other people who had done, who had been to their gig in the same place like a little while ago. And they were like, oh, we remember it being smaller.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, no, wait. We remember it being bigger than what it is. It's smaller than they remember. Anyway.
Right.
And
see, I always remember it as like the width of this room.
Yeah, no, it's like double the width.
Right. Because that's like my mental.
Yeah.
That's
what I thought as well. I thought it was just like a hallway, but it's not. And the stage was quite big, but you can only access it from one side.
Right.
And it's like an open side, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was weird. And the back was right up against the wall and the right side was right up against the wall.
Yeah.
So the only way I could get on stage to take photos is if I just like stood up on the edge to get closer to eye level or just above their eye level. That was like the hardest part of the show probably, is especially being someone who's quite tall, is standing, right on the edge of stage and not poking out like a sore thumb,
Yeah.
But I still did it a few times, and surprisingly the shots weren't a whole lot better than the ones on the ground. So I spent most of them in the crowd.
Yeah.
And like sort of beside the stage and whatever. So it was good.
Did you learn a lot?
I did. I just learnt to take lots and lots of photos. And I quickly learnt that I needed the highest shutter speed that I could.
Yeah.
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 Because otherwise it looked like there was motion blur, or it looked like it was out of focus when it wasn't.
Yeah.
So
it's really frustrating.
It was.
Because it's like, it's the worst combination of everything. Like it's dim. Yeah. And you need a high shutter speed. And you need as much in focus as possible. But you have to have a low aperture, a high shutter speed, and a high ISO.
Yes.
So it's really hard to balance, I think.
It was. But I ended up shooting most of it at 4,000 ISO.
That's not bad.
No, I didn't go anywhere past that. I looked at the images at 3,200. Like I zoomed right in on the camera screens. It wasn't fantastic quality. And they didn't look grainy on the screen. So I was like, I'll try it at 4,000. And again, it didn't look too bad on the screen. So I was like, it's fine. Yeah. But then the good thing was, each act, for some reason, it got brighter every time. Oh. And by the last one, which was the main event, it was quite light in there. So I was actually able to use the 24 to 105. Oh, pretty much the entire time.
That's sick.
So I swapped that over like 10 minutes into the show, into her set. And yeah, I pretty much exclusively used that for the
Nice.
rest of
You could get like nice and in there.
Yeah, so I was like, for most of hers, or not most of it, but for a lot of that, I was towards the back of the crowd.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's it.
Nice. Yeah.
So you got some good photos?
Yeah, I reckon I got good
You got stuff you can show me later that I can see?
Probably. I haven't edited any of them yet because I've had a very busy week.
Yeah, fair.
And I have been unwell. So
Bringing your sickness into this room.
But yes, so I actually kind of want to edit some today so I can send off like a sample.
Yeah.
So that I can get them all done either late this week or early next week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah.
And did you end up working out the payment stuff?
Yeah, I asked. Oh no, I didn't ask. I was leaving and I was saying bye to people. Like I dipped straight after because I was like, cool.
Yeah.
That's also always an awkward thing I found.
Yeah.
Is that always awkward?
Yeah. You just got to leave.
Yeah.
You gotta say, I'm going now. Bye.
Yeah, that's what I did. I like after the show, I kind of walked around with my cameras for a little bit in case anyone was like, "You take photos," or if something cool was happening on stage where people are packing up, I took some photos. But then it got to a point where I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna pack this up now."
You're like, I'm done.
Yeah. So I packed it up and then walked around for a little bit more. I was like, "Yeah, okay." No one's talking to me. I'm gonna go.
Like checking both your watches.
Yeah. And then I check when's the next train coming. Yep. 10 minutes. So, yeah. And then it just started to walk out with your bag and people were like, "I see you."
Yeah.
So it's like, but yeah, they caught me as I was leaving and was like, "Did you get paid?" And I was like, "No."
Actually.
I was going to like follow that up later because that's just what I normally do. But no, they were like, "Have you got your details on you? Or do it right now." Like your bank details. So they were standing next to me in this dark room and paid me right there and then.
Nice.
Great.
That's sick.
Yeah. So.
Was it what they quoted or was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they asked me, they were like, "Was it this much?" And they said a little bit under. And so I said, "I was actually this." And they were like, "Yep, cool."
Right. Okay.
I didn't want to change it.
Yeah. Look, actually, it's
Actually,
like
it was like
it's like $2,000. So pay.
But it actually, really cool thing. It will hopefully lead to more work.
Yes, I was talking to our
you?
friend on the weekend.
Is it the same sort of work that we're talking about then?
Yeah. Concert work.
Yeah, not photography.
Oh no.
Ah.
I was talking about photography.
Well, that's interesting. Well, I was talking to, can we say her name? No, better not.
Let's just call him Bruz.
No, him. I'm talking about her.
Ah, Brazette.
Brazette. So I was talking to Brazette before.
Is this the ginger one or is this?
Yeah, the main event.
Yeah, cool.
Brazette before the show, and she was like we were just chatting about what we're doing now, whatever, because we haven't seen each other for a few years.
Yeah.
And she didn't know that I was studying sound, or they studied sound.
Right.
Studied sound.
Oots.
And she was like, "Oh, no way. So you do like live sound stuff?" I said, "Yeah. You know, we did heaps of that in school. I want to do film stuff, but I know my way around a desk sort of thing."
Yeah.
She's like, "That's great. 'Cause, you know, one day I want to tour and I'd love to have a front of house engineer that'll tour with us." And I'm like, "Oh." And she's like, "Bruz, will do." He said he'll, do drumming for us. So if you're keen to do that, then
If you need a touring photographer.
Yeah. She's like, "I'll keep you in mind."
Right.
I was like, "Yes, please do."
Yeah, that's sick.
So that's obviously not going to be for a long time, but
Yeah.
well, I don't know, maybe in a few years. But
Yeah. Well, my conversation was much more short term. And was basically like the company that like organized the event.
Wait, did they go through someone that?
Yes, they went through a company that I'm not going to name, but I will tell you afterwards.
Yeah.
And they're a very large like, what's the name? No, not booking agent, but like, a company.
Wait, so did they find the band sort of thing?
They were there at the show.
Oh.
Yeah. And they spoke to the bands afterwards.
Yeah.
I hate that I have to be so vague about this.
Yeah, I know.
They spoke to the bands afterwards, and basically said, "Look, like there's a lot of opportunity here for more work." And they're gonna probably post some of the stuff that you end up sending through for the for the stuff, and Bruz is going to make sure that they post they tag the company and stuff, and there's the potential there for a lot of
more photography,
concert photo and video work.
Yes.
So
that would be sick.
Potentially a lot of really cool stuff. So
I hope my photos are good then.
gotta keep pushing that.
Yeah, we do. Is it at this? Is that company exclusively that venue?
No.
Okay.
They're
so vague.
They're
that company, that venue.
they're quite large.
Okay.
I don't have my phone. I can't Google them for you, but you might have heard of them.
Maybe.
They're quite Brisbane based though.
Okay.
But whatever.
Oh, still the Brisbane scene's growing.
Yeah. Big old.
Yeah.
But yeah. So
yeah.
glad it went well.
Yes.
That's
and
good.
Do you know? Did I tell you what the second band was?
No, you didn't. I talked to Bruz the other day, and I was like, Joe didn't know what they were.
I didn't know who they were. I didn't get told who they were.
Yeah.
Until I went, and then I can say who they were.
Yeah.
Right? It was Loretta, I think that name is. So good.
Yeah.
Oh, they're coming back in October, and I'm going.
All right, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
It was so good.
I went to a concert on Friday night as well.
How did that go?
It was super good. I wasn't shooting or anything. I was just there at the concert.
Yeah.
But it was super cool. It was at a venue that I'd never been to. It was at a venue. I can talk about it because I have no affiliation. It was at the venue called. Oh no, Felons. It was at Felons Brewing Company. So it's like.
Oh. Wait, is that
normally it's on there's like a section of I can't remember what it's called, but it's like the Piers area under the Story Bridge in Brisbane, where they have like all the bars and stuff, and it's like the nice part of the valley basically at this point. But normally it's just this massive brewing co, and they do all these like pale ales and stouts and lagers, and it's like a fancy place, and they have this massive beer hall that's normally like packed with chairs and tables and stuff and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Anyway, they've been converting it into like a show floor for concerts, and so this is the first concert that I've been to at Felons.
Yeah. And
it was really, really cool.
Yeah.
So I went and saw the Vans. They did 2 nights in Brizzy. I went to the first night. And it was sick. It was really cool. It was like, because the floor was so small, it was really easy to leave and come back to where you were.
Oh yeah.
So like you didn't like, I'm pretty sure the show was sold out, but it didn't feel sold out. Like they were at capacity because COVID, but it was still like if you wanted to go get a drink or you had to go to the bathroom or something, you could just like walk out the side and then come back to where you were, which is really nice. I've never had that in a concert. Like in every concert before that, I've kind of just been like in the middle of a massive pit, and I'm just like, I really have to pee.
You guys are doing great, but I have.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. But I was watching the photographer and the videographer as they were going around, and they were doing their thing, and it was really interesting because the videographer was shooting just on like a super basic rig. It was like well, not basic in terms of cheap, but basic in terms of like the actual rig itself. It was literally like it would have been an A7S III with probably a 24-70 on it, and it was just that. He had an Atomos, the Ninja Atomos monitor on top, with 2 grips on the side. Obviously, he had a cage and then the 2 grips, and that was it.
Huh. And
he was just running and gunning with that, which was super cool.
That's all you need.
Yeah. So I really enjoyed watching that, and I, in all seriousness, did not see the concert photographer.
Really?
Once. And then I saw the concert photos pop up on Instagram that night, and I was like, I have no idea where this man was.
Wow.
So he crushed it. Good job to the concert photographer.
Damn.
Granted, I had had a few beers. But really good.
If you didn't see him.
No. And I was like actively looking for him. I was like, where is he? I wanna say hello.
That was the hardest part I found, is trying to stay out of sight.
Yeah. Which I kind of am of the idea that like people aren't there for you, so they naturally won't pay attention to you. Like the second that you start paying attention to concert photographers and stuff, you'll notice them. But before that, you don't see them at all.
Yeah.
Like as long as they're wearing black and stuff, like you literally won't see them. One of my favorite examples of that is the 21 Pilots concert photographer. It's a guy named Brad Heaton. Phenomenal photographer.
Yeah.
Like genuinely one of my like photography influencers. Incredible. And all he does, that's his like main job, is he tours with 21 Pilots as their concert photographer. Right. But he is on stage, like with them, in front of the drum kit, like in front of the piano, like walking around, like in the pit, like you don't notice him.
Huh. Wow.
And then, but the second you start paying attention to it during the concert, you're like, oh, there he goes. oh, and he's like up there on the scaffolding, and it's like, you know, once it's like the confirmation bias. Like once you start paying attention to that, you'll start seeing it. But before that point, it's just gone. Because you're so focused on the main act that like there's no reason for you to pay attention to anything else.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense that you wouldn't see them until you're actively paying attention to it.
Yeah.
So I didn't really, when I did my concert, I didn't really pay that much attention to it. I was like on stage and hanging out, and I was like, look, no one's going to see me, so it doesn't really matter.
Fair enough.
But I'm glad it went well.
It did. I had lots of fun. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Concert photography is definitely one of my favorites. It's so fun.
The other thing was that I found is like the timing that I would take photos. Like when it's hard to explain, but like a time and a phrase when they were singing, when I would take it, I realized was like the wrong time.
Yeah.
I was taking it like at the end of it, and it's like, no, I need to do it during.
Yeah.
You got to get open like 5 during. Like,
yeah, you don't want like the like the half closing faces or the half opening faces. Like you need
either like wide open or closed.
Yeah. It's all about timing, which is so it's another thing to think about, and your brain just kind of goes wow. It's so fun though. I would love to do more concert photography in the future.
Well, we should push what you was talking about.
Yeah, I reckon I will. I reckon I will, is what I'm trying to say.
Do we have contacts to that company?
No, but I can talk to Braz.
Yeah.
And I can figure it out.
See if we can talk to them. Straight to them. Anyway.
Segueing right along. Yeah. I have something kind of serious to talk about.
Oh.
Not related to us, but related to content creators in Australia as the whole.
Ooh, okay.
So something has happened this week that is really bad.
Oh.
So you know that comedian that I went and saw up on the Sunshine Coast probably about a month ago, FriendlyJordies? No? Okay. No. Well, he's a political comedian. Does a lot of just like silly videos online. And he is an independent journalist. So he exposes a lot of stuff that is happening in the Australian government and that sort of thing. And about 2 months ago, he made a video on John Barilaro, who's the Deputy Prime Minister of New South Wales.
Yeah.
And so in that video, he basically like outlined how corrupt he is, and like, you know, he votes against all of these conservation laws, even though that's what he got put into Parliament, because he was saying that he was going to do conservation stuff, and that he's got all these hands in all these like pots and blah blah blah. He's just not a very good person.
Yeah.
And so, you know, as an independent journalist and as a country with free speech, we are absolutely allowed to do that. I could say anything I want about the Prime Minister, and I could not get put in jail for it because we have free speech.
Yeah.
Now, what happened is this is all snowballed. And over the course of the past 2 months, more and more stuff has been happening. So they've both been escalating.
Yeah.
And John Barilaro ended up sending Jordan, his name's Jordan, sending Jordan a lawsuit, like a, you know, a defamation lawsuit is what he sent. And basically was saying, you're defaming my name by making these videos, and you need to stop. Now obviously Jordan and his company have their own lawyers and blah, blah, blah. And they meticulously went through, found a bunch of errors in this lawsuit.
Oh, really?
And basically were like, we can't go through with this lawsuit because like just stupid things like John Barilaro listing his address as like Parliament House, Canberra. Like you can't, that's not your address. Like, just stuff like that. So you know, they kept pushing back, and obviously, like, the more you push back that way, like, it's just mind games of, like, you know, if it keeps going back and forth, there's a hope that John Barilaro will just drop it and be like, you know what, just stop.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're starting to see this, like, Jordan Shanks and his company are starting to see this now as, like, an opportunity to, like, kind of show, you know, what actually happens in the country and that sort of thing. And so, what's happened last week is his employee, a guy named Cisco, he was going to uni, and he had the lawsuit in his bag with him because he was going to go visit their lawyer after his uni class, to go through the lawsuit and, like, figure out the next steps.
Yeah.
He was walking through the park to the uni, went to his uni class, and as he was walking back, he saw John Barilaro, completely by chance, getting into a car. Started filming from the second he saw him. So this is all on record.
Yeah.
He went up to John Barilaro, said, "Hey, John," like a couple times, and then was like, "I have a lawsuit. You're suing my boss. You know, take this," because it was like the explanation of, like, everything that had happened. John Barilaro got in the car, drove away. Pretty innocuous interaction, you know, nothing bad.
Yeah.
Just a sort of weird interaction.
Yeah.
Next morning, the 3 unmarked cars pull up to Cisco and his family's house, with a bunch of non-uniformed police officers and one other person. And they arrested Cisco, assaulted his mother, and heavily injured their dog. And this is all on video because obviously it is. And he was in custody.
Yeah.
And he got out on bail. And the people that arrested him were the anti-terrorism organization, like of Australia.
What?
Yeah. So blatant misuse of power.
Yeah.
By Barilaro in using the anti-terrorism force.
Yeah.
And then the bail requirements for him were completely absurd. Like, it was things like, you cannot talk about John Barilaro. You can't interact with John Barilaro in any way. You can't continue your work in defaming John Barilaro. That sort of thing. So basically it was like, you can no longer do your job.
Yeah.
If you want to maintain bail. So that's all happening now. There's I'm going to say now, there's a legal fund on FriendlyJordies' website for people to donate to if they want to. But it's just a complete miscarriage of justice and abuse of power of John Barilaro.
That's insane.
It just really shows you, like, you know, we have free speech, but to a certain extent.
Yeah.
And the powerful can very easily take it away, which is quite terrifying as content creators.
Yeah.
Because you kind of run off this assumption that we live in a country that is safe and we are entitled to our opinions, and we can, make fun of people and and say that they look like meatballs, which is one of the things that Jordan Shanks did to Barilaro. Right. You know, it's a joke.
Yeah.
You know, we've been doing it for years. Look at the newspaper comics that people made about Julia Gillard. Like,
yes.
You know, the only reason that they didn't get arrested was because, you know, all of those newspapers are owned by Murdoch, and Murdoch is in the pocket of the government. So it's like you've got this whole funnel of people, and everyone is allowed to make fun of them except for people that are independent and are not associated with like the ABC or a Murdoch owned or association. It's crazy.
That's so dumb.
But yeah, that's just, I wanted to just put that out there real quick because it's insane, and I'm really interested to see where it goes and what happens with the case, and it's so strange.
I suppose, like, about times that something like that came up in a big public way.
Yeah.
Because there's lots of stuff like that happens without anyone knowing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
still insane.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And whether or not John Barilaro stays in office.
Yeah.
But only time will tell. So
whether the government will back him or not.
Yeah. So we shall see. It'll definitely be interesting. But definitely recommend do your own research.
Yeah.
Find look up FriendlyJordies on YouTube. He's just released a video. And then from now onwards, they're entirely factual. And they have to be. So they're not very interesting. The last couple were like genuinely really funny because he is a comedian at first and then a journalist. These ones are it's no longer funny because the contracts of the lawsuit are like you can no longer make jokes. So they're all entirely factual. It's like this is what's happened, and so it's a lot more informational. But definitely go check them out if you want to learn more about the situation and go donate to the legal fund.
Yes.
Because it can happen to anyone, really.
Yeah.
And
crazy.
Yeah. So.
Yeah. It's scary as creatives.
Very scary. But let's segue right along, I think. Have you got anything you want to talk about?
I mean, no, I only had the concert, really.
You only had the concert. That's sad.
Well, because I haven't been able to do anything.
Yeah, you've been sick. That's a very good point.
I've just had a lot of things happen this week.
Yeah, fair. Okay. Well, I have something. I have been... Well, last week we talked a little bit about the show Invincible and the sound design in that show. Yeah. Over the course of the past week, I finished that show. And I need you to watch it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
You just have to.
Why? This because of sound design or just everything?
No, it's just a fantastic show.
Right.
Genuinely super engaging, and I've never seen anything like it before.
Oh.
There's like one big final fight scene. Like it's not the final one, but in the finale, there's a big fight scene, and it is everything I want out of a superhero fight and more.
Right.
And just like, I was literally sitting there like this for 15 minutes, just like, like it kept, as like one thing would happen, and then I'd be like, what? And then it would escalate again, and I'd be like, what? And then escalate again, and I'd be like, what? But yeah, so big recommend. But what I want to segue into is the animation of the show.
Oh, okay.
Especially because just before the show I showed Joe
I had that moment as well.
a video about animation. But one of the things that I noticed in the show and that I had to Google was that the show was animated in 2D.
Yep.
But occasionally, especially in larger scenes, they use 3D animation in the background of like characters and stuff, like characters walking and like not main characters, but just like extras and background characters. And I was really confused by that.
Wait, so do you mean like in the thing you showed me, was there 3D animation in that?
No, it's like in larger like crowd scenes and stuff where it's like
the
characters talking in the foreground and there's a bunch of people in the background. Like most of the background people are 3D modeled.
Oh.
Which is really interesting. And I Googled it and I was trying to figure out why they do it. And the reason is two things: cost and time management. Because the 3D models are just like, they make a couple and they just copy paste them. And I assume some of them are stock models and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And because they're in the background, like if you look at them, you'll notice, but in the context of the show, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
So it just saves time for the animators in animating these larger scale scenes.
Yeah.
And so as I was like delving into this hole, I was finding more and more things that use this method of like filling out background areas with these 3D models to make animation easier for them. So then they only have to animate 2 characters and then they can just put like, they keyframe 2 or 3 walking animations, copy paste them onto a bunch of different models and just let them loose in the background, and they can do that in like 2 or 3 hours, rather than like the 2 days it would take to hand animate like a massive crowd of people walking across.
Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting.
It is interesting.
In terms of like making animation easier and more manageable for larger scale projects like that. But do you want to talk a little bit about the video that we watched before we started today?
Yeah, so we watched I don't remember.
It's by a channel called Noodle.
Oh, okay, Noodle. I was going to say I don't remember who it was. He talks about how some people use the AI to like up the frame rate of animations. So pretty much all animations are done at 30 frames per second or less. And people are going through and using the AI to up it to like interpolate. That's the word. Interpolate to like 60 frames per second, because to everyone it makes it look more fluid and less jumpy.
Yeah,
I guess. But then the way he explained it is like, it messes with the drawings, I guess.
Yeah, it adds a lot of artifacting and compression issues and just a lot of gross yucky.
And it makes it, some shots it makes it look more fluid, but it like completely takes away from the original animation. Yeah,
it takes away the timing and the artistic intent. One of the big things that he said was like, there's like a book written by all the people that worked at Disney in like the 60s, that outlines like the 12 key factors of animation.
Yeah.
And he said like, when you interpolate footage like that, the AI throws out 9 of the 12 things that you need. So
I remember that now. Yeah. And I remember he would like pause it at different points during that, and like the characters were all just messed up and like half disappeared because the computer had done something weird or whatever. And
that's one of the things that I think about a lot when I'm doing like keyframing stuff in Premiere and After Effects. I'm like, why doesn't everyone just animate like this? Like if I can just go and it just goes across the screen, like why doesn't everyone do that? And now I understand, because it's makes it look gross and yucky, and there's no in between frames. And one of the things that I learned from that video that I actually didn't know was that there's a thing called I think they're called in-betweeners or in-between artists. But they're people who their entire job is to fill the gap in animations. So you've got like the main animator who's doing like, so say it's like a 24 frame per second piece, and it's a 10-second scene, and they're animating in twos. So it's actually...
So they hold the frame for 2 frames.
Yeah. So it's actually 12 frames for every 24 frames that are being played.
Yeah.
But then, so you've got those 12s, and then maybe the character's only actually moving in like 6 of those 12 images. And then it's someone's job for the other 6
to
go fill in the gaps. So if you move your arm from, this is going to be a video thing, if you move your arm from here to here, the keyframe would be here and here. And then the in-between artist's job is to add the smear between the two. So interesting.
That is very interesting.
I thought that was so cool.
Yeah.
And I just like, it's such an interesting, such a niche job. Like, you'd have to explain that to everyone that asks what you do.
Yeah.
Like you'd go, you know how you do this? I do that bit.
I do the blur bit.
I do the bit in the middle. This bit right here.
This 45-degree section.
Yeah.
That's me.
And there's a really cool picture that he shows in that video of what's his name? Guillermo from, I think that's his name, from Pinocchio's dad.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Guillermo.
I don't remember his name.
But there's a really cool picture where it says, he's like pointing at something, and that's 1. So pointing up is 1, and then pointing straight ahead is 2. And then it's got like 3, 4, 5 in the middle. So then 1 and 2 is the main animator, and then it's got like the smear of that movement in the middle
Wow.
for the in between animator.
That's insane.
So interesting. But then you've got like that's the explanation of like why the interpolation stuff is bad, because if you go from there to there with interpolation, it's just gonna go whop.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna have the smear. It's not gonna have like the bending of the wrist or the like weird movement of the arm. Like in animation, when you move, your arm doesn't stay straight. It kind of curves with the movement.
Yeah.
But yeah, super interesting. So
Yeah.
I like that, learning about like a weird little.
I was gonna say it made me want to like learn more about animation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love learning more about animation. I love learning about all those like weird little things that you don't really think about.
Yeah. And all the super niche jobs.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
One of the other ones that this is also on his channel. He was talking about video game music and how it works. And it's always been so interesting to me how video game music works, because in a film you can play it directly to the beat. Like you can have a like beat meaning story beat, not music beat. That's confusing. But like that, at 35 minutes and 42 seconds they're going to come around that corner and there's going to be a big scary thing, and then you go BAM in the music. Yeah. You don't have that in games. In games everything is player driven.
Yeah.
So how do these games know when to play a certain sound at a certain time? And then on top of that, how do they make the transition from track 1 to track 2 seamless without stopping and starting the track like it's an album? Because, that would be easy. Is, you walk around this corner, you hit a trigger there, track 1 stops, track 2 starts. Or track 1 fades out and track 2 fades in.
Yeah.
But that is dumb and doesn't make sense. That would sound weird. You would immediately hear that and go, that sucks.
Yeah.
But what they do is it's called mixing horizontally, and they mix these two tracks and they write these transitional pieces to connect to the tracks, and it's so interesting. And not Halo. LucasArts did it first.
Yeah.
And can you guess what game did it first?
It can't be like wait, LucasArts as in Star Wars?
Yeah.
It wasn't like Lego Star Wars, was
Yeah,
it?
it was Lego Star Wars.
How good.
It was they designed a whole music engine.
Wow. I didn't know that.
That did two things. One, it procedurally generated music based on where the character was and what they were doing. And two, they completely revamped a bunch of stuff. And so they created this program, and then Halo ended up using that program. And the whole development cycle was really interesting for Halo. But basically, I'll give context. But Bungie, the company that made Halo, had just had a massive critical failure with their last game. Microsoft bought the company based on a prototype that they saw. The prototype would eventually become Halo, but at the time it was a third-person multiplayer shooter.
Yeah.
They ended up doing a bunch of work on it, blah, blah, blah. 5 weeks before it was set to launch. No, sorry. I think a couple months before it was set to launch, they realized that it was really boring. They scrapped the entire game, started again.
What?
And it was like playable 5 weeks before launch.
Wow.
At 5
That's
weeks before
insane.
launch, they went, okay, we need to do music now. And so what they did was they went, all right, how are we going to do the music? Let's use the thing that LucasArts made, and then let's write a bunch of... So we need individual songs for every area, of which there are 10. We need transitional tracks to get between them. So let's write 200 transitional tracks, and let's also write a main theme. And
Crazy.
What? And so they developed this whole system where when a player would walk into a new area, or would encounter a certain event and stuff like that, it would trigger the transitional section to start, and it would seamlessly transition from that track to whatever track was necessary next, and the player wouldn't notice at all.
Yeah.
And then, so that kept getting worked on over the years, and then Breath of the Wild came along, the Zelda game from like 2016.
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild came along and completely changed how everything worked in terms of transitional tracks.
Yeah.
So then because Breath of the Wild is these massive orchestral pieces, and then they redid that whole transitional thing and flipped it on its head and started doing like clean transitions that were way faster. Rather than having a massive transitional piece in the middle, it would just figure out where that song was, do like a 5-second interlude, and then go straight into the next track.
Wow.
So like, and that would be sound cues and stuff like that as well. So in Breath of the Wild, there's like these massive guardians, and whenever you see the guardians or are in the proximity of a guardian, it plays a music cue. The music cue is not just like a sound effect. It's a full song.
Yeah.
And it always transitions based on whatever the last piano note was in the like Fields song. So they're like ping plong blah blah blah. From whatever note that was, it transitions into this like chaotic piano piece of the Guardians being there.
Wow.
It is absolutely mental, and it is so interesting to me, and I think it's super cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my music transitional history lesson.
I gotta look into that more. It's exciting seeing you getting excited about music.
It's so cool.
Because what always blows my mind with just sound in general with games is that you no longer, like with movies, it's all 2D.
Yeah.
Because it's all on a screen.
Yeah.
But then in a game, you have to work with it sound in 3D.
Yeah.
Which is like, it's a whole new world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Aladdin. Thank you. Yeah.
So,
super cool.
So rather than putting, as you said, rather than starting it at a certain point in time, which is like, I see time as 2D, time in a movie is 2D. So rather than starting it at 47 minutes, you have to put it at a particular point in the world, and then once they get there, it makes that transition.
It has to be triggered by something rather than just on a track.
Yeah. Same with like, even if, I think I spoke about this a few weeks ago, but like even if there's a fire in the world, and if you're like free roaming or whatever, there has to be a specific point when you can start hearing that fire. And then as you move closer, it's got to get louder. And it's like, how do you do that in a 3D world? Yeah. Yeah. Crazy.
The way that music works in video games and how sound works in video games has always been so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Another thing that this is more of a frustrated thing.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about Halo, there's like the and I'm currently as we're recording, I'm re-downloading Halo.
Yeah.
Because I really want to play it again. But something really interesting is that Halo released like an anniversary like set of the games, and it has Halo 1 through 4.
Yeah.
So that's Halo 2, Halo 1, Halo 2, Halo 3, Halo 3 ODST, Halo Reach, and Halo 4. So that's 6 games.
Yeah.
Confusing, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, I want to play through them all again because Halo 1 through to Reach were like massive parts of my childhood. Like Halo and Zelda were the 2 games that I played. Like that was it. Also Roller Coaster Tycoon, but that was more like a blue.
Of course, everyone played that.
Everyone played Roller Coaster Tycoon. But like I have vivid memories of sitting on my like busted up laptop with like literal like painter's tape holding it together.
Oh my goodness.
Playing Combat Evolved like over and over and over again.
Wow.
Anyway, a couple of years ago they announced that they were doing this anniversary. Immediately I bought it because I was like, I need to get on this. They were redoing all the graphics. They were like, I was so excited.
Yeah.
I downloaded it. I booted up Halo 1. which, for context, came out in 2001. So it is 20 years old now.
Yeah.
They redid all of the graphics, and so immediately I was like, yeah, I'm going to play it with the revamped graphics, like it's going to be all modern and blah, blah, blah. And I'm so excited. Booted it up, played through the first mission. I was like, I hate this.
Oh, really?
This sucks. And I immediately went back to the original graphics.
Really?
Yeah. They had taken out everything that made it good and just replaced it with like stock standard, high fidelity, high resolution graphics that completely took away all of the atmosphere, all of the things that made the world interesting and fun and made you want to explore it, and just turned it into like a sci-fi Earth.
Oh.
It was so sad.
Oh, that is sad.
Yeah. Plus all of the technical issues as well, because what they did to make it easier to run was it's technically still running on the Halo 1 engine. So that means that you can switch between the two without having to reload your game. You can just in real time change from the revamped graphics back to the original and blah, blah, blah. But the problem is that the way that the physics worked in the original Halo is that it was all based on the textures. So the actual polygons of the textures were what you would like be able to shoot through or not. So say that a tree was like at a certain angle, the texture and the polygons up to the point that it was actually a physical object were the point that you could shoot past. Right. So it wasn't hitbox based. It was entirely based on the geometry of the objects.
Yeah.
What they did for the anniversary edition that they didn't think about was they redid all of these textures, but they didn't maintain it to the original geometry. So you got these like trees in the anniversary edition that are much thinner than the original trees were, but they still have the same geometry. So you go to shoot something,
and you hit the tree.
And you hit the tree that's not there.
Right.
Which is stupid.
Yeah.
Shouldn't happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, they ended up like doing a bunch of stuff. Like they made the world way like browner and bleaker, and they made all the sci-fi structures like way more colorful, and added a bunch. It looks like Tony Stark made it basically.
Oh, okay.
And like because like in the original, it's these like massive metal monoliths of like gray steel. Like that's it. It's like super imposing.
Yeah.
Because it's featureless. And then in the new one, they add all this stuff to it that just makes it look like a bad version of Star Trek.
Right.
And just takes away everything that made it good. And it's like, it's way brighter. In the original, like, it's super dark. Like, you have a flashlight and you need to use it. And then in the new one, it's just super bright. So you can just walk around like it's daylight. It's super frustrating. And, yeah, so I ended up not playing the anniversary edition. And I'm going to play it again now. That's what I'm downloading. So I'm just going to play it on the original graphics. And just live my life like it's 2006 again.
Oh, that's really sad.
Yeah.
That turned out bad.
But at least they had the foresight to let you choose which version you wanted to play. Yeah. So I'm not stuck with the gross high fidelity graphics.
Yeah.
Yeah. But Noodle also has a video complaining about this because he also loves Halo.
Yeah.
And he has a whole video complaining about that exact thing. So like I found that yesterday. I was watching that yesterday and I was like, yes, this is exactly what I've been saying. Yeah, I'm super excited to replay Halo.
I'm excited too
because it's really cool. Anyway, should we finish up?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. All right. Thank you so much for watching or listening to this episode of The Froe Show. You can send us money on Patreon if you want. Patreon.com/The Froe Show. We like money.
Yeah.
What about social media, Joe?
Social media. Instagram is @FroeMedia. And Twitter is @TheFroeMedia.
Sick. All right. Thank you so much. We'll see you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.